please consider to let your faith be yours alone. Hey guys, it's been a while since I've made a video. A part of the reason for this is just because with topics like spirituality and leaving Christianity and things like that, there's just so many different routes you can go. There's so many different ideas swirling in your head, especially when you're just coming out of it. You're sort of still in the healing process. You're still trying to sort it all out. And sometimes you don't know what you think about things, or for me, like when I think about a certain topic in my mind, I'll rabbit trail onto like 6 different topics, and it's not really conducive to video making. So I'm going to try and narrow down to one thought that I know for sure how I feel about it, and that is indoctrinating our children. If you're watching this channel, likely you were maybe raised in Christianity or some other form of religion, fundamentalism, when you were growing up. And you had to fight through the brainwashing to figure out what it is you really think, what you really believe, and you're now here exploring your own form of, spirituality. I don't think there are many children raised in something like paganism in comparison to the other major world religions, or even raised in just the option to explore. Usually you're either extremely religious or you're somewhere in the middle where you attend services for like Christmas or Mass or whatever, and your family went occasionally, that you believed in God in some distant way, but didn't really apply it to your everyday life. And then there are the people who just don't identify with any form of religion at all, other than church is good, So the thing is that for those of us raised in a fundamental or, strictly religious setting where church was everything, being saved or, going to heaven was everything, it makes it that much harder. Because the thing about children is that when you hear something as a child, especially repeatedly, that something is truth to you. That is how childhood psychology works. If a child is told that they are stupid over and over and over again, obviously that child is going to grow up innately feeling that he or she is stupid. So the thing is that it is exactly the same when we repeatedly indoctrinate our children with ideas of theology and the afterlife and things like that. Me, from birth, I was raised, from day one or whenever my mom was out of the hospital, that we were in church. We were raised, that you wear dresses to this church. And to this day, when I attend for my family, I most certainly don't wear pants, because that is not what my family does. That is not what my church is about. Women wear their dresses, and I'm going to get to some of that in a minute. But, we weren't as much in, like, now they have a lot of like nurseries and kids classes and things like that. We weren't even as much raised in that. We were raised that you sit quietly in church, you don't color, you listen, which as a parent now blows my mind, because my parents were very big on like breaking our spirits like horses, and I don't mean that the way it sounds. Like, I love my parents, don't get me wrong, but their number one goal really in raising us was discipline, and basically getting us to follow suit and obey to them was like the number one goal, because that will set us up for success in life, to obey our supervisors and obey God and obey our husbands and things like that. So discipline for them was a number one pursuit. So I'm sure we did sit still in church from the age of nothing, because we knew even as babies that if we didn't sit still, we would, get our spankings, we would get pinched, whatever. So you can be taught things and trained like a dog from a very young age. But this is more about what we're raised to believe. So children are sponges, and we know this. We know that if we tell them there is a God, their minds interpret the things that we tell them as truth as being truth. If we say, this color is red, they know very quickly this is what red is. They interpret what we tell them as truth. So I can't understand why it isn't more important to people. Let me rephrase that. Okay. So when people raise their children to believe that this Bible, this religion, this is the number one truth, myself, for example, this is the one way, the one truth into being saved. Everyone else is lost. And I grew up feeling extremely grateful. Like, I couldn't believe that somehow I had it so easy. I remember thinking that, feeling a little bit guilty that I was raised in the truth, and that so many other people weren't as lucky, that they were maybe born into an atheist family, or they were born into, I don't know, a Catholic family, God forbid, and I just thought, they were raised in something else. So deep down in my mind, we knew indoctrination was a thing, even if you're not putting it together. You know that, those poor Catholic kids, they're being raised to be Catholic. That we know that a Catholic parent is going to raise a child to believe in Catholicism, and that that's what they will grow up believing. So deep down, we know that this is indoctrination, and yet we don't put that together for our own religion. So yes, I felt so grateful and guilty that I wasn't doing more with this gift of just being born into the truth. That I felt I had it so easy compared to other people, that it just was. And in reality, it's so sad that I felt that way, that I had this, even as innocent as it was, an elitist mentality of like, I'm here and everyone else lacks the understanding. But I only felt that way not because I was a bad person or a bad kid, but because that's what I was told, that we know the truth and everyone else around us is lost. And I remember being in the mall and walking by people and just feeling this heavy, sick, nauseous feeling, thinking every person walking by me was going to hell. And it's just not right to make a child take on that burden. So I'm going to tell you some backstory as to leading to my point of why we should not indoctrinate our children, among many other reasons. But my big reason, so as a young child, I got saved probably, saved at, I was like 5, maybe even 6, but between 4 and 6. I even remember it. I remember I was wearing this gauzy jasmine dress-up outfit for pajamas, like the Princess Jasmine from Aladdin, and I was into wearing my tennis shoes all the time to bed, and I had my little sneakers on and my jasmine outfit, and I remember it must have been after a Sunday, because I came to my dad and it was after church, and I'm sure he'd been preaching about hell because that's the only thing he really preaches about, and telling him, I'm scared to go there. I don't want to go to hell. I want to be saved. And my parents are thrilled, because this to them is the age of accountability, which is what fundamental Christians believe, Baptists believe, is the age at which a child is able to expressly be aware of their need for salvation. So, say you're 3, you can't really comprehend the need for being saved from the sins that you commit, which, at 4, how many sins can you really commit? But my family believes that, the Bible verse saying that, babes come from the womb telling lies, speaking lies, that we come out as liars, and my mother firmly believes that babies are manipulative liars. So, really though, children are so innocent. I don't know how anyone can't see that, but that's my opinion. And so, children learn what we teach them. If our children are 7 and they have learned to lie, chances are in some way we've probably taught them that they need to keep things from us, or they get punishment, or they see us being deceptive and not being honest with them, whatever. It's all indoctrination of sorts. But that said, so I got down, I prayed, Mom wrote it in her Bible the day I got saved. I got baptized afterwards, because Baptists don't believe that baptism gets you to heaven. It's just a show of obedience. It's a show of that the old you is dying and the new you is resurrecting in Christ. And maybe one day I'll make a video on just what Baptists believe, because I'm hearing a lot of things from even my friends that they're not really real clear on what Baptists believe. So maybe one day I'll do that. But anyway, so after that, because I was like 5, being baptized in front of everyone was so much fun to me. I had told my parents that I wasn't really saved and I needed to be saved again, because I wanted to be baptized again, because I was 5. And that right there tells you children don't really deep down understand the significance of what you're telling them. They don't understand true death of a human, or the afterlife, or eternity. Adults can hardly fathom eternity or the idea of it. So to expect a child to, so after that, around 9 and 10, things became very dark for me as I came more into understanding. Because I was raised, even without understanding at all, because I was raised from day one hearing hellfire, brimstone, and hopefully then, my YouTube name makes sense as balefire and brimstone. Balefire is a pagan term, of solstice celebrations, and brimstone. And I wanted to tie the two in together. I thought it was clever. Anyway, so, but you hear about hellfire and brimstone from birth, and every single prayer is, maybe the Lord will come back while we're praying. And New Year's Eve was always, this may be our last New Year's Eve, and it's always, God is coming soon, the second coming is on its way, the end times are here, we can, see it in this and this and this happening, and the awful president we have, and all these. It was always, every day, the end of the world. And I don't know if you're not raised in Christianity, I don't know how to even describe what that does psychologically. And I'm not saying any of us are victims here. It is our job to work through these things as people. I believe that we are put into the situations we are put in life, either because we chose them in the spiritual world, or because the universe has a reason for it. And I think I'm in this situation because I chose this. I chose to have these fundamental parents to work through religious hang-ups. And this is part of my personal enlightenment of my consciousness, I think. That's how I feel about it. So I don't see myself as a victim of this at all. I'm grateful for this experience, and I'm infinitely grateful that somehow I'm working through it and getting to the next level. And I wish that for everyone watching as well that is also trying to work through childhood indoctrination. So anyway, on top of the hearing it was the end of the world all the time, I also went to a Christian school. And so, we prayed before every class. There was chapel, there was church, there were devotions, there was Bible class. There was music class where it was hymns. There was school plays, which were the nativity or, some religious-based thing, obviously. And in chapel one day, around the age of probably 10, I saw, they showed, I don't know for sure if it was Left Behind. I think it was Left Behind, but it was one of those movies that was about the rapture. And, the rapture being the second coming of Christ, in case you're just watching this and aren't sure. I don't want to confuse anyone. So, in this movie, which I do believe it was the Kirk Cameron movie, the rapture happens, and I mean, people disappear immediately into heaven during the rapture. Planes go down in flames. Traffic accidents everywhere from people being taken from their vehicles. Fires, and I mean, pets left alone to, I don't know, die and starve, I guess was how I interpret it. And then there is this lone Kirk Cameron or whomever trying to realize what had happened, that his family was taken because they were saved and he wasn't, and then trying to convince everyone that it was in fact the rapture, and that meant then it was the apocalypse, that all these horrible things are happening. And because I knew scripture so well, I knew that meant, per Revelation, that the people would be begging for the rocks to fall down on them and crush them and kill them, or that the sun would become so hot that people would be begging for death. So, these images, as being what I was told, would be a truth. And realistically, it's unbiblical only because there aren't going to be people that are just like, oh, okay, now I believe in God. There will be the 144,000 that convert. There will be the 3 witnesses that raise up, that sort of thing. But the thing is anyone who does end up converting, really everyone's going to get the mark. Per Revelation, I mean, and this is not reality. Everyone gets the mark, and if they don't, they die. The mark of the beast. And then, after that, you have to have it to buy and sell food. Who's not going to get it, right? Everyone knows you follow the government or whatever they're saying is going to happen. And then, after that, should you convert, you're going to be, killed as martyrs. So those are your 2 options. Go to hell, to not die in the direct, immediate happenings, because you didn't convert in the apocalypse. But also, it says that God will send a strong delusion so that you will believe a lie. So the chances of you even believing in the first place are slim to none and unlikely. Then say you're one of the lucky virgin Jews, the 144,000, or whatever. You end up getting killed, and you get to inherit the kingdom of heaven and all of that, but you will be a lower rank because you didn't believe in the first place. But this will become the kingdom. Anyway, assuming my thoughts weren't totally jumbled there, because that's how it gets when I make videos, the options are not good, not so fun either way. So, either way, the movie wasn't biblical in that sense that there would just be a random Kirk Cameron converting all these people to Christ and everything's hunky-dory at the end. But it did paint imagery to the things I had been told all my life about what the second coming would be and what the end of the world would be. Before, it's just words. And then it becomes this horrible reality when it's put into cinematic picturing. So after that, I became really mentally ill. For especially like a 10-year-old, I would have nightmares. I couldn't fall asleep. I was afraid of like everything happening in my room, every shadow. Every single time I heard anything from like NASA, like a meteor shower, or that there would be an eclipse, I would get just the worst anxiety and fear, because to me it was like every celestial thing happening was like, when the eclipse covers the sun because the Lord has come back and taken his people and it's the end of the world. Every New Year's Eve I felt physically sick, because I was always told this is probably the last New Year's Eve we'll have. Long story short, I got saved again, but this time it was out of a sick, horrid, gut-wrenching fear that I was going to burn in hell, that somehow I didn't pray right, that I left a word out, that God didn't hear me, that, something went wrong, and maybe I was too young and it didn't count. But because I was older now, 10 and 11, um, it was completely real to me now. And I was scared. And even after doing that, even after getting really, really, really saved, I mean, I was a tortured soul. I've had emotional problems all my life. And, you know, I feel sorry. I'm sad for the kid that I was. I'm so sad because no child should be raised this way. No child should be scared all the time, or raised that they are born bad, that they are born going to hell to suffer for all eternity and burn in literal flames in torment, and told this from day one. And I'm sad for me because I'm also sad for the other kids, you know. I mean, it got so bad. Let me tell you this part of the story. It got so bad that I would just cry out of fear and cry and have these like mini childhood panic attacks. And it got so bad that my parents got so tired of it, they just spanked me. They spanked it out of me. They didn't know what else to do because I was such a raving lunatic of a mess. I was so afraid all the time, even though I had done everything I was told to do to be safe from it. It was just so scary still. And yeah, they spanked me. And to this day, they say, you know, that they did the right thing because I never complained to them about it again. And this isn't about spanking or not spanking. This is about spanking specifically in this instance where they, because of the life they chose, they induced into me an extreme fear of burning, of death, of the end of the world. And even though it was their choices and their indoctrination that made me feel this way, they think it was the right thing to beat it out of me instead, in a sense, you know. And I understand that they didn't know what to do, and they always just did the best they could with what they knew how to work with. But the reason I never brought it up to them again was because I learned they aren't going to help me. From that spanking and their exasperation, I knew that they couldn't resolve inside my heart or my mind what I was going through. That if I told them again, I'd just get spanked again, or, you know, whatever. And my parents didn't believe in therapy or like depression. They really didn't believe in depression in that way at the time. They're much different about that sort of thing now, as far as like medicating depression or seeing therapists. They still wouldn't really see a therapist, but you know, they understand that depression is a real thing. But at the time, it wouldn't have occurred to them to have me see a professional. You know, they were just doing what they thought was right, I guess. So, you know, that doesn't mean that because I stopped telling them, I stopped having problems. I had a lot of things going on in my mind, and I'm embarrassed to go into what they were. Sorry, I'm so emotional, but that's why I don't make videos. I get emotional. Truthfully, I don't even know how to describe some of the things I went through, but I will leave it at I continued to have emotional hardships from all of this. And so, I want to implore you that even if you're just starting out, or, you know, even if you're still a Christian, or you're still whatever you are, if you're still Muslim, or, you know, you're still Mormon, or you're still Hindu, or whatever you are, to please consider to let your faith be yours alone. Because maybe you found your faith in childhood, or maybe you found it as an adult. But as someone who lived through it, I can tell you that children are not equipped to psychologically process the things that we're asking them to when we ask them to believe in our faith. We cannot, as children, handle understanding death and torture and the apocalypse and the end of the world, or, you know, getting virgins in heaven. Who would even tell their children that, you know? But there is probably the majority of the world, if you think about it culturally, that does tell their children that. We are teaching children that people are born bad. We are teaching mistrust. We are teaching them that everyone around us is going to burn. That giving them that burden, that it's up to them to save everyone that passes by. You know, as kids, we had to go door to door to knock on doors and ask people if they had been saved. And I mean, it's mortifying. You know, the rejection that you feel getting doors slammed in your face, and not that I blame the people slamming the doors, but to ask a child to, either you're telling someone that they're going to hell and you either get to save their soul, or you get a door slammed in your face or in anger. Those are impossible things to ask kids to live through. You know, I remember once my brother's girlfriend came to church, his girlfriend of the week, or whoever she was, I don't even remember, but she came to church, and I don't remember the instances, but I was so young. I was probably 8, 7, I don't know, but I led her to the Lord in a tent meeting because I could quote the same scriptures that every adult could. It was memorized and deep-seated in my mind. And I was so proud that she got saved, that I did this, you know. And then later on at a tent meeting, I don't know, she got saved again, and I remember tearfully she said to me that, I'm sorry, you know, I didn't do it right the first time, or something like that, and I felt devastated, you know, because like I must have done something wrong, that she spent, you know, weeks not being saved and could have been killed in a car accident. I mean, indoctrinating our kids is inhumane. It just is. It's cruel. And I know that parents all over the world, myself included once upon a time before I had kids, fortunately my transition sort of started when she was born. So for me, it was more about before I had kids. I had this idea that I was going to have this perfect Christian, girls wearing skirts family. And oh my goodness, if I don't hate myself for that now, but that's another video later that's coming. So, you know, everything changed, but it's not, I'm not saying that to criticize other people, because I'm saying I've been there feeling like that's what I wanted. I wanted to be the Proverbs 31 wife and all of that, and mother. But really, to influence our children into believing what we do, you're assuming that you are 100% right, and guess what? Every single person in their religion, their, you know, sincere religion, is there because they believe they are 100% right, and they are the one way, and they are the truth. So I know that whoever is watching this that's still a Christian is thinking, but they don't have the Bible, they don't have the discernment and the understanding, they're the ones that are wrong. And I know that if you're Muslim, you're thinking, but they don't have the Quran, they are wayward, they don't understand, they don't have Allah's discernment, and that you have the one way. Because this book, this flawed writing that at the time you do not believe to be flawed, because you don't look outside of the information from your own ranks. I know that everyone thinks that they're right. So the thing I'm going to ask is that trust that you're right. Fine. If that's what you want to do, and you want to truly believe in what you're being fed in from this one source. And I get it. We believe that is the source. I understand. I truly do. But I encourage you to just consider allowing your child to be a child and let them find their way. You can, let them know what you believe, but to force them to believe it as well, and at this age, is damaging. I want to share this book with you, which I haven't fully read through yet, but it's called Raising Freethinkers, A Practical Guide for Parenting Beyond Belief by Dale McGowan. And there's a second book as well, which I can't remember what it's called, but it's something very similar. I think it's called Parenting Beyond Belief. So even though I affiliate myself in some ways with paganism and Wicca and Buddhism and Hinduism, I identify with a lot of things, but I don't label myself anymore. I avoid labels like the plague now. Even though I have spiritual leanings, even though say I believe in reincarnation or whatever, I don't believe in a literal deity myself. And I'll make a video about that in the future. But myself, I don't believe in any literal deity. I believe in male and female energies, and I believe in, universal consciousness energy and things like that. A lot of pagans believe in a literal, many deities, for example. Regardless, anytime I've performed any sort of like ritual or solstice type thing, even more pagan books that I have read, I am careful. Like, for example, Rupert's Tales. I was just talking to a friend about this book. It is very heavy on the goddess this or the god that or whatever. And I'm not, even though it's pagan and I, relate in a lot of ways to paganism, I'm not going to read that to my daughter because it's not about doing the opposite of how you were raised for your kids. It's about not indoctrinating your kids, not brainwashing them. And, so in a lot of ways, this is a helpful book for helping you navigate avoiding indoctrinating your kids. If that's something that interests you, then look this up. They've got really cheap copies of it on eBay, or of course you can find it on Amazon. I got mine on eBay for something like $3.99 free shipping. We're raising her like an atheist, but in the sense of we're not going to shelter her from religion. We're going to expose her to world religion rather than exposing her only to one religion. We were not raised to explore comparative religions. Basically those were lies, don't listen to them, and I know many other religions are the same way, that, do not explore outside information, because God forbid you should come to understanding and come to knowledge and true discernment about what you're being taught, about what you've been taught. So we're going to raise her atheist in the sense of we're not telling her there's a god or a goddess or an Odin or whatever. We're going to raise her as a person, to be a good human, to be kind, not because being kind means you get a heavenly reward, which is what I've had to work through of, okay, I did a good deed today. And I've literally thought this like in the last 2 months. I did a good deed today. Wait a minute, nothing happens now. I just did something good. I don't, God isn't watching and will bless me. Just these little things that you don't even realize you still need to work through as an adult. Like, it doesn't even occur to you that, like, there are still these little nitpicky things that are buried in there psychologically. Like, what terrible person thinks, but I don't get anything for doing this good thing, But that just shows that religion is based on, controlling the masses of you get good things for doing good things. You do bad things, you get punished. And it's just a way of controlling people, and it's like the grown-up version of being in timeout or, getting suckers for going on the potty. It's, and I want to raise her to be good for the sake of being good, for doing good, for doing right, for being honest and having integrity, but not because, there's some God watching over us. It really takes away from your personal fulfillment and your self-esteem to think I was only doing this for approval from some celestial being that really doesn't talk to me, I want to teach her to be kind for the sake of being kind, and to be compassionate because it's the right thing to do, not because she gets anything from it. And I mean, these are huge holes in our understanding now that we're adults when we were raised this way. So I encourage you to check this book out. It teaches, empathy and courage and honesty and openness and things like that, notwithstanding biblical precepts or, sacred text principles. So those are my thoughts. That is my sharing, my emotional outpouring, and I hope you don't mind me showing my emotions a little bit. But that is how I feel, and I could continue to talk about this for a while and probably make some even better points than I have, because it's been a bit jumbled, but I'm going to end it here. And it's something to consider, I hope, for you. If you're getting out and you have children, that there's still time to undo what you've done. Saying I'm sorry goes a long way. Saying I'm still a human and I'm still learning how to be a person and how to be a spiritual being, if that's what you want to teach them. I'm not going to teach my daughter that she's not a spiritual being, because to me that's pretty irrefutable. But either way, I'm basically not laying the spirituality on thick with her, but I want her to know that she does have an element to her that is not just about deeds or appearances, that there's something deeper inside of her, a consciousness that will continue to evolve as she grows. And it's okay to then relate that, like, hey, I am also working on my own evolution. I'm still learning. Once I thought this was right, and I'm sorry for leading you down that way. Or, I told you some things that, maybe mommy doesn't have all the answers. There's nothing wrong with being human and showing them this openness and this truth. That's something I don't have in my family. I wish there was more of that. Hey, I'm human. I made a mistake. So let's give that a shot with our kids. You know what I mean? And tell them we're just people who are working through our own evolution, and we want you to feel free to do the same and to talk to me about it. So those are just my thoughts on this. Don't brainwash your kids. Bye. Thanks for watching.